used or repossessed car, Automart na yan.
6 na taon nang nakalipas nung nilabas ng Mitsubishi Motors Philippines ang 3rd generation Montero Sport sa bansa. And since then, it's been one of the company's top sellers at consistent siya as the 2nd best-selling mid-size SUV in the country. Truck-based SUV to be specific. And at the same time, marami na ring neto sa used car market. So, alamin natin ngayon kung kahit medyo matanda na tong si Montero Sport, kung okay pa rin siya as an SUV to buy and to consider for your family. So, Montero Sport na to lumabas una noong 2015 sa Thailand and dumating sa Pilipinas noong 2016. And noong 2019, nagkaroon siya ng minor model change. Ang iniba sa kanya, iba yung grille, iniba din yung headlights, at nilakihan nila yung fog light housing. And yung pre-facelift model kasi, mas manipis yung headlight, mas manipis din yung grille ng konti, at yung fog lights niya nasa baba. So, nasa sa inyo yun kung mas gusto nyo yung pre-facelift look or yung post-facelift look. So, by the way, ito nga pala yung bagong Black Edition or Black Series na Montero Sport. So, as you can see, may black highlight siya dito sa harap, sa baba, and even the wheels, the roof rails. Yan, ginawa nilang item in tune with the whole Black Series theme. Yung wheels niya are 18 inches and it's been that way since 2016. So, for the 2019 model year, iniba nila yung rim design. Although for this Black Edition, ginawa nilang, syempre, all black. Looks similar to the pre-facelift model. Although sa likod, iniba nila yung taillights at medyo mas iba yung korte nung tailgate spoiler. So, yung tailgate spoiler, by the way, that's exclusive for models like this and the top-of-the-line GT 4x4 and GT 4x2. So, all in all, it's a very familiar shape. Nasanay na tayo sa itsura neto. We've seen a lot of these on the road and kahit common siya, masasabing gwapo siya. Although, pag pumunta tayo sa likod, nandun yung significant na talking point. Kahit 6 years ang nakalipas, pinag-uusapan pa rin tong taillight design ng Montero Sport. So, you either like it or you don't, no? So, may mga nagsasabi maganda siya kasi kakaiba siya. Pero may mga nagsasabi din na hindi nila gaano trip kasi masyado namang kakaiba kasi yung taillight niya nag-e-extend hanggang dito. At yung pre-facelift model pa nga, umaabot yung ilaw hanggang dito, yung reflector niya. At all in all, props to Mitsubishi for trying to make an effort. And by the way, itong generation ng Montero Sport na to is about to wrap up production because by 2023, ilalabas nila yung 4th generation Montero Sport. So get used to this side because the 4th generation model might not be too long of a wait. So habang nandito din tayo sa likod, tignan na rin natin yung cargo area. It's worth saying na the Montero Sport is actually the narrowest SUV in its class by a significant margin. Mas manipis pa siya kumpara sa Fortuner, sa Everest, sa mga kung ano-ano pa. At reflected yan dito sa cargo area niya. Malaki siya, maluwag naman, marami kang masasakay. Pero may kita mo kung saan kumikitid yung body, lalo na dito. So kung magdadala kayo ng mga mas malalapad na items, yan ang kailangan nyo i-consider kung madalas kayo magkarga ng gamit dito sa likod. But otherwise, kung mga pang grocery, mga ganyan, kung mga out of town once in a while, the Montero Sport should be good enough. At kung i-fold flat nyo lahat to, you have about 2,000 liters of space here at the back. Pag-usapan din natin, paano i-set up yung third row. Kung mapapansin nyo, bakit may ganon sa likod? Yan kasi yung bottom ng upuan at ito yung backrest niya. So, ang kailangan mo gawin, hatakin to. At kailangan mo pang kunin yung rest doon para ma-set up mo. So, ako maiksi braso ko. So, kailangan ko pa pumasok sa loob para matulak yan pababa at itulak pa para mas mag-lock siya into place. Hindi siya ganun ka one step, hindi siya ganun ka hassle-free setup or isto, no? Pero all in all, it takes a little bit more time and there are some competitors na mas madali i-set up yung third row. Since 2016, the Montero Sport has been powered by a 2.4-liter common rail turbo diesel engine. So yung DID na yan, that means direct injection diesel. So it makes 181 horsepower and 430 Newton meters of torque. So, nung araw, nung unang labas niya, it was near the top of its pack. But since then, nakahabol na yung mga competitors niya and it's actually at the lower end of the spectrum. Dati kasi, mas malakas siya sa Fortuner, sa MUX, mga ganon. But now, since bago na yung mga makina ng mga ngayon, mas malalakas na sila dito. Pero ang advantage ng Montero Sport is it's smaller and lighter than most of its competitors. So, medyo bawi ka sa performance and at the same time sa fuel economy. At since SUVs ang pinag-uusapan natin, kamusta to sa baha naman? Well, according to Mitsubishi, it can take on about 600 millimeters of wading depth. So, mga 600 millimeters na baha yung kaya niyang ilusong bago medyo mas delikado for the engine. Now, some competitors, mga 800 millimeters, 700 millimeters, but 600 millimeters should be okay. So yung interior ng Montero Sport has been pretty much the same since 2016, and while we're on the subject of space nung nasa likod tayo, yung design ng center console medyo palapad na ganon, and since narrow din yung body, hindi siya yung pinaka maluwag dito sa harap, no? Considering harap na to, yes, you can adjust the seat back and forth, pero ramdam mo na mas makitid dito sa harap. As for the materials, they look soft touch, no? Pero pag katukin mo, it's actually hard plastic. Now, Mitsubishi has this habit na yung hard plastic sila, pinapamukha nilang premium. Now, that's not to fool you. It actually looks good as an effect of that. And isipin nyo na lang din na pag hard plastic, mas hindi siya magbibitak kapag bilad-bilad sa araw. So, siguro that's the advantage of hard plastic. But at least, it looks premium. And isipin nyo din, hindi nyo naman madalas sa hawakan yung dashboard habang nagda-drive. But still, some would like more soft touch materials, but otherwise it looks premium. So this is based on the GT model, itong Black Series na to, and you get a digital instrument cluster. Itong digital instrument cluster na to, pwede mong palitan yung itsura niyan in 3 modes. So you can have speed display or RPM display kung ano mas gusto nyong piliin, ano. Pinapakita din yung fuel consumption mo, etc. etc. At kung may pinapatugtog ka sa radyo, pinapakita niya din kung anong track yung piniplay niya. Very interesting. Or kung may tumatawag sa'yo, magpa-pop up siya sa screen dito. Very interesting. The steering wheel naman, it's packed with buttons and steering wheel controls. So, on the left side, nandito yung mga audio controls mo. On the right side, yung cruise control mo. So, yung cruise control neto, by the way, is adaptive. So, pag bumagal yung nasa harap mo, automatically babagal din yung kotse mo. At meron pang automatic emergency braking to para kung biglang promeno yung kotse sa harap at hindi ka makareact on time, siya ang pepreno para sa'yo. And also, the Montero Sport is the only one with metal paddle shifters. Most ng competitors nga plastic lang. So, let's move on to the center stack, no? And this is a screen that was introduced in 2019. And the pre-facelift models, kung yun yung kino-consider nyo, kailangan nyo lang maalala na wala pang Apple CarPlay or Android Auto to. Ito, meron na. Tapos, they also moved some of the buttons for the automatic tailgate. Medyo inusog din yung hazard light, etc. Air conditioning controls are still the same as before. Although, kung may mapapansin kayo, it says Nano E dito sa air condition panel. So, what is Nano E? It's basically an air purifier. So, parang yan may may onboard air purifier para hindi mo na kailangan yung sinakabit pa sa kotse na panlinis ng hangin dito. Storage space, actually it's pretty small, again because in its class it's actually the smallest. And itong pocket na to, it's for the 4x2 models. Kasi kung 4-wheel drive yung kukunin nyo, ito yung controls para sa 4-wheel drive system niya. And to save a little bit more space, wala siyang traditional na handbrake, electronic parking brake siya, at may auto hold pa. So kung mari stop and go traffic, diinan mo lang yung apak sa preno, it'll hold the brakes for you. So other things you can see here at the front, you have a pair of cup holders, you have 2 USB ports, one 12-volt socket, and one HDMI port. Now for the lower models, you get fabric seats na manual adjust. Now since itong Black Series ito is based on the 4x2 GT, you get power adjustable seats at pwede mo taasan or babaan yung height. Yung GLS, hindi mo pwede kabitan ng power seats at cloth seats lang siya. Same goes for the GLX, yung base model na may manual transmission. So, while we're on the subject of the transmission, it's an 8-speed automatic unit. So, Nung unang labas niya, it was class leading, pero since then, si Ford naglabas na ng 10-speed automatic. But nonetheless, 8-speed automatic, that's to maximize the SUV's fuel economy. So dito naman tayo sa likod ng Montero Sport, and napansin ko mataas yung seating niya, and kahit mataas yung window line niya, at least malaki pa rin yung makikita mo sa labas. Madami ka pa makikita sa labas because yun nga, they mounted the seats higher up. As for space, it's not bad, although this is in my driving position. Pag mas matangkad yung umupo sa harap mo, mga ganito yung legroom na may experience mo. So even for someone my height, it's enough. Pero kung mas matangkad ako, syempre tatama na dito sa upuan sa harap. Okay lang sana yun kung na-adjust tong upuan na to. Kaso fixed siya, so hindi mo pwede i-slide forward or back for more room for the second row passengers. When it comes to legroom, it's not exactly class leading, although that's no surprise kasi aside from being the narrowest in its class, ito Montero Sport na to, it's also the shortest car in its class. So, kahit pa paano, mas limited yung space niya sa loob. But, let's move on to the good points of the Montero Sport. Now, if you go for the later models, such as this one, meron kang dalawang USB port dito sa baba, plus, on higher spec models, meron ka pang 220 volt socket. Armrest, syempre, meron yan, and may cup holder pa, may pares ka yan. And, para sa mga may baby dyan at kailangan niya ng car seat, syempre, standard ang Isofix mounts para madali ikabit yung upuan ni baby. Now, headroom naman, it's decent, although the high seating does limit it somewhat. If the seats were mounted lower, you'd have more legroom, although hindi kasing komportable kasi medyo aakit yung paa mo. Space isn't as generous, pero let's say hindi naman kayo katangkaran sa family, this is totally acceptable. So bago tayo umupo sa third row, paano nga ba i-set up itong buong third row na to? So step 1, you have to pull the lever that's back here para maakyat mo siya yung mga backrest. So once that's set, ito naman yung ibababa mo. Yan. And you do the same with the other seat. And ibaba tong second row na to. Ngayon, kailangan nyo mag-ingat kasi tong second row seat na to, walang room para sa paa. So, ingat lang kung may nakaupo dito, baka maipit yung mga paa nila. So, how's the space like? Okay. Okay na sana because there's actually decent legroom. Well, for someone my height. Kasi 5'4" lang ako. So, you have about this much legroom. Unfortunately, yun nga, since napaka-bulky ng second row na to, wala kang paglalagyan ng paa. So, tinan mo yung pwesto ko ngayon, nakaangat yung knees ko at wala akong paglagyan ng paa. Also, you have to put this up para mas komportable, syempre. Now, if only you can slide this forward, it would be more comfortable. And if this seat was set a little bit higher, mas natural yung seating position. But for headroom, well, it's not that big kasi ang laki nung nandito sa gitna. Although, the windows are a decent shape, so at least you can see out of them. Hindi siya yung sobrang claustrophobic yung feeling. It's somewhat similar to the Nissan Terra na it's okay if you're looking out of it, pero yung legroom mo, yung footroom mo, halos wala. So, this area is best reserved for mga small adults or mga children. But, kung madalas kang may dala sa third row, maybe you should consider other larger SUVs such as the Toyota Fortuner or the Ford Everest or Nissan Terra. So, driving impressions naman ng Montero Sport, and actually na-drive ko na to nung unang yung labas all those years ago. Nadala pa kami sa Cebu noon to try it out. So, how does it feel revisiting the Montero Sport? So, first off is the ride, and after taking this bump, let's just say na the competition has caught up. Of course, those are newer models, so in a way, expected na yon. Yung body control ng Montero Sport, medyo may pagkaalon siya, and at the same time, you can feel some of the sharpness of the bumps. You feel that a lot sa front, although at the back, it's a little bit softer. But all in all, the ride is, well, it's still okay pa naman, but kung ikukumpara mo sa mga mas bagong competition niya, syempre, iba pa rin yung mga modelo na yon. But all in all, it's not bad. You can take this on a long road trip. Komportable ka pa rin. However, I have to note something about the seats. Now, in short journeys, ramdam mo, mas matigas talaga yung mga upuan ng Montero Sport. It's firm, although, pansin ko, the bolsters are pretty thick so they hold you in place. But yes, the seats, medyo firm siya. So, at first, medyo parang hindi komportable to, ganyan. Pero, on a longer distance drive, you're going to settle into the seat and mas okay na siya. So, sa handling naman, well, typical SUV, although again, the newer ones, they handle slightly better. Kasi yung suspension niya, it's, the springs at least, are on the softer side. Pero yung shocks niya, yung dampers niya, are on the firm side. So, what does that mean para sa atin? So, in the corners, it leans over. Pero hindi siya yung magsusuper bottom out pag may lubak na ganon. Now, in some ways, it's good if you're off-roading kasi that gives you extra articulation. Pero nasa two-wheel drive model tayo ngayon, so hindi mo rin gana ma-maximize. But otherwise, it's better than some of the competition when this was new. Again, handling is about of the time and it's actually, well, it's fairly average. It's not its strongest suit talaga. So yung steering naman neto, it's still a good old hydraulic steering. So you still get feel, although ang napansin ko, it's a touch on the heavy side. It's hindi naman parang wala kang power steering, no, but it's a touch on the heavy side and that's something to take note of and something to consider. So kung ite-test drive nyo to, tingnan nyo kung okay sa inyo yung steering niya. So lastly, and this is not necessarily a driving thing, no, but it's something important kasi it revolves around driving. It's your visibility sa likod. Now you'd think malaki yung windshield, rear windshield ng Montero sa likod kasi ang lapad eh. Pero when you're from the inside, titingin ka sa rear view mirror, ang liit lang nung opening. So just be aware kapag nagmamaneobra kayo with the Montero Sport because that rear visibility is not the best talaga. So na-mention ko nung huli na dati class leading siya sa power, not so much. So again, it's got 181 horsepower and 430 Newton meters of torque. And compared to other models, it's actually near the bottom of the list. So how does that translate? Well, it's still not so bad. It's comparable to like a two-wheel drive na Everest. Although the power delivery, hindi siya yung pagkaapak mo isang whoosh na ganon, no? It's a little bit more linear. You have to rev it kasi may VEC diesel siya, may variable valve timing. So kailangan mo gisingin yung makina to get the most out of this engine, which is somewhat ironic of diesels kasi ang diesels, typically yan, pagkaapak mo nandun na yung power kagad. Ito, medyo baliktad lang. However, that variable valve timing does wonders for fuel economy. So for a big, heavy SUV like this, in city driving, it does about 8.1 to 8.5 kilometers per liter and fairly heavy traffic. And on the highway, you can do up to 15 to 60 kilometers per liter. Now, that's for the two-wheel drive model. So, for the four-wheel drive models, expect about 1 kilometer per liter less on the highway and about half a kilometer per liter less around city. So, all in all, despite its age, okay, it's holding up in some areas, but in others, some of its competition has it beat already. Pero, how is it compared naman to the best-selling SUV in its class? Well, gagawin natin yan soon pag ikukumpara natin itong Montero Sport against the Fortuner. 6 years is a long time for any vehicle life cycle and kahit papano itong Montero Sport na to, medyo nafe-feel niya na yung edad niya. Pero that doesn't mean you shouldn't consider one of these. After all, again, it's usually the second best-selling truck-based SUV in the country and madaming satisfied owners dyan. So, good points. Well, it's got a pretty good engine, economy is decent, features, busog siya sa features if you go for the top-of-the-line models, and, well, it has decent enough space. However, this design also shows na kailangan na ng all-new model. And that's again coming na mga 2023. Now, hopefully for the 4th generation Montero Sport, makita natin yung mas magandang third row mechanism, mas lumuwag pa yung loob, and of course a little more power and economy under the hood. At the same time, I wish they would improve yung body motions kapag medyo malubak yung kalye and improvements in handling as well. But again, this was one of the top SUVs in the mid-2010s. So, you can't go wrong with this SUV either way. And if you want to save more, mag-consider kayo ng used na Montero Sport. At kung used cars ang hanap nyo, isa lang ang sagot dyan, i-Automart na yan. Ito po si Anton Andres mula sa Automart.ph. Please follow us on Facebook, like us on Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. Salamat!